Israel, a tiny nation, is one of the major tech medical powers in the world. I mean, it's a startling accomplishment for a nation of that size.
So what do you think is going on in the US in terms of how Israel is discussed, and internationally, what do you see the picture as, and what's your view on it kind of?
Well, I'm looking for that word. I think that, the left has turned partially against Israel. They say it's because of this Israel policy or that Israel policy. I don't think that's the case. I think it's an essential part of the idea of intersectionality, which is basically that thou shalt not take the side of any European or white nation. Never mind that Israel is majority not white, but anyway, thou shalt not take the side of, even among Jews, thou shalt not take the side of any white people over people of color, no matter what. And I think that is the marching orders. So then it's easy to then look at Israel, because there are certainly things they do which we might wish they weren't doing. But what it allows them to do is just totally ignore the entire history of the conflict, ignores recent history where Israeli prime ministers had offered on at least 2 occasions everything that the left would want them to offer now.
Yeah.
And he just walked out on. And then they don't give you any answers. Like, well, okay, what would you do if your restaurant started blowing up? Well, I would give the land back. Well, would you give the land back? Are you aware of, would they take it back and make peace? Have they ever said that they would take it back? Has Hamas not said to this very day that they will never make peace with Israel and they want Israel destroyed? Like, these are not easy answers here. Israel, a tiny nation, is one of the major tech medical powers in the world. I mean, it's a startling accomplishment for a nation of that size, with no oil, no natural resources. It just purely, I mean, it really is an illustration of what every other country should look at and say, well, you know what, we can bitch about this or that, but they're doing it. Why can't we do it? Like, you can blame imperialism for 1,000 years, but at some point I'd say, well, look at Israel. They look at what they're doing there.
Yeah. Why do you think that the left hates Israel so much more than other nations, or is so much more obsessed with it?
I don't know. I mean, the tempting answer is anti-Semitism. I think, but it's not. And there's a lot of anti-Semitism on the left. A lot. But I think it's more to do with the optics of the left. And this is not a bad reflex of the left, and we all have this reflex, is that it's difficult to see the weak, and the Palestinians are the weak and the abused, and they are abused, as any weak person always is by a person. You give a badge to any people and give them power over another people, you're going to have abuses every day. That's just human nature. And you see this, and you see it on TV, and it becomes it pulls at your heartstrings, and it's just very hard to not turn against them. And then when you see it in terms of the racial thing, and also in terms of your worldview of imperialism and all these things, I think it just all adds up,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good answer, but
yeah, I think that kind of makes sense to me.
And it's the Jews. Yeah, I mean, let's not.
Yeah.
I forget it's the Jews.
Yeah, it does. It is a bit weird, their obsession with it. There's also people like Ilhan Omar and the Squad. Those type of people seem to say a sort of the occasional quite dodgy thing about Israel or Zionists and their influence over things, and also just their reflex reaction always seems to be really, really much more anti-Israel than they would be anti another nation doing.
Well, Ilhan Omar is a Somalian, right? Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
I hate to get that wrong, but she comes from a country that's grown up with the anti-Israel kind of marination. That's her. So I give her a bit of a pass in the same way I give my Palestinian friends a pass when I recognize that it's deep within them, these feelings. But what I can't give a pass to is the enablers, the people in her party who found excuses and ways to not set her straight,
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They came close, so they were going to condemn her, blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, the left rose up and they just watered the whole thing down. And so, yeah, I mean, she said some really bad things about Jews.
Yeah. Yeah, they do come out with some pretty dodgy stuff. Right, let me just check if there's anything else in the
Not
politics.
AOC, though. Not AOC. I don't know if did you say AOC before?
Only in the sense, yeah, but only in the sense that she's in like the squad, That's what I know about it, referred to in the UK. But yeah, I don't know if she said anything specifically bad about
AOC had made some comments about Israel and the humanitarian crisis there that seemed a little uninformed, but she's never said anything over the line like Ilhan Omar did. Not in my opinion.
Yeah, something else, which is, I guess, another thing with the Israel thing is because I'm Jewish as well, and I know that there's like.
Max Klinger is the name of the guy in MASH, right? You know that.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe I'm named after that guy.
When I saw Max Klinger, I wondered if it was a punk, if I was being punked. But go ahead. You're Jewish.
But so I know that there are valid obviously it's not the case that criticizing Israel means you're anti-Semitic. That's the problem. And so there are some people who just, if they hear any criticism of Israel, they basically just start saying it must be anti-Semitic, which I definitely don't think is true. But so I have a kind of problem with trying to shut down debate around that by just instantly saying, oh, this must be anti-Semitic. But at the same time, sadly enough, loads of the time, even if it's not explicitly anti-Semitic, there's kind of an anti-Semitic conspiratorial tinge underneath what a lot of those people think.
Absolutely. I'm uncomfortable with the anti-Semitic charge as well because for the reasons you are. Although that doesn't mean that I don't think anti-Semitism is part of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to shut down the debate, but it is really stunning if you speak to people who are really out there complaining about Israel, and I've had a few of them in the podcast over the years, and you start asking them like their basic IQ on Middle Eastern history.
Yeah.
They don't know almost anything. I mean, I can't tell you how many people said, well, do you know how it is that Israel even got into the West Bank? No. How? Oh, there was a war and Israel was, fighting for his life. And did you know that Israel actually called Jordan and said, this is between us and Egypt, just stay out and we won't attack you. And Jordan said, no, we're going to attack anyway. And in that attack, they lost Jerusalem and all that stuff. Yeah, and usually in world history, the aggressor is not considered to have a strong case when he demands his land back. That's not usually the case,
Yeah.
So I mean, the history, and then of course the history in Camp David, and then Omar with Bush and Abbas. They've really tried to give this land back. I mean, Ariel Sharon pulled out of Gaza hoping that this would be the first step towards pulling out of the West Bank. It's pretty clear that it's not just Israel here. It's pretty clear.